Welcome back to Younger MMA. I like to do these videos when I'm driving back home from training because I just think about stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I've talked about on this channel would have been, I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable like saying it publicly if things were how they were like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, like in our culture. But I feel like people want a different perspective now because honestly, people are getting kind of bored. And I think that sometimes the way that we look at life and look at the world we live in is very surface level. And I don't know what you believe in listening to this. Maybe you're an atheist or maybe you have religion, but just for the sake of like an argument, let's think of how most people conceptualize Earth versus, say, like the afterlife or, you know, other dimensions. And for some reason, it's like we look at Earth as kind of just like the normal place or something. Like if you believe in heaven and hell, then you probably see like heaven and hell as these spiritual realms. But like Earth, you probably just see it as physical. Like people just see Earth as purely physical and purely material. But, you know, on this channel, I just want to give my kind of the way that I see the world. And I think that to some people it might sound crazy, but maybe to a lot of people, y'all appreciate it. But everything I'm about to say is like really how I see life. Like it's really what I believe. It's not something that I just tell myself. This is like what I've gathered from reading about different religions and their perspective on the nature of reality. And I just kind of come to my own conclusion where like I think that the same way that we think about heaven and hell, and back in the day, like Vikings had like, I think Valhalla, you know, like the spiritual realms where you go when you die, the afterlife. I actually see Earth as a spiritual realm. Like, I don't believe that you can just come here. I think that you have to be allowed in here. And I actually think that, like, there's a purpose of being here. Like, there's almost like a process that your soul is supposed to go through in your time here on Earth. And personally, I do believe in reincarnation, but that's just me. I do believe in it. But I think that part of the purpose here is that it has to be a mystery. Like, if we knew, then it would probably ruin it. And I even have this like sneaking suspicion that if you know too much about the nature of reality, that you die. Like somehow, like you get in an accident or something. That's why I'm kind of like, I like thinking about it, but I don't want to think about it too much, you know? But I believe that Earth is just like a spiritual realm, just like the other dimensions, and that when your soul is here, there's kind of like this process that you're supposed to go through. Like, you know how people talk about the hero's journey? And it's like a cycle. And then when you read like esoteric stuff, they say that everything is a spiral. And I can't remember exactly where that comes from, but it's some like esoteric mysticism thing I read. It might be multiple different like beliefs or disciplines or whatever, but they believe that everything is a spiral. And so that kind of explains like the cyclical nature of reality, day and night and the seasons. And one of the laws of Hermeticism is reoccurrence. And you do see how like in life you are in a cycle. And the most unconscious people that like do the least work on themselves, unfortunately stay in cycles where it's like they meet the same people over and over again. Like, I'm sure y'all have experienced this thing where sometimes you get to know someone and you realize that they really remind you of someone else. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Like, sometimes someone will come into your life and they're a blessing. Or sometimes you keep having, like, the same kind of enemies that do the same kind of things to kind of mess with you, right? And I believe that, like, when you're here on Earth, it's like your soul has like a default cycle that it'll fall back into if you don't break out of it. And then it's like when you can transcend your lower cycles, you can find the higher ones. And so what I mean by that is like when you escape a toxic cycle, then you can find yourself in like a harmonious cycle where you're in harmony with life and you feel like life is like embracing you instead of fighting you. And I really like just investigating stuff, so like don't get freaked out when I bring up Gnosticism. If you're not a Gnostic or if you have a negative opinion of Gnosticism, just hear me out. I just think this is like interesting and I think it's beautiful. They have this idea, and by the way, I'm not like the most well-read. I'm not like a professor or a scholar, so don't like freak out about if I don't have the best understanding of Gnosticism. But they believe in this goddess named Sophia. Without getting into the weeds, it's like she was kind of like trapped here, and she would, because of the trauma of what happened to her, she was like fragmented into pieces, and that like that's what we live in, that like that reality is her, like is Sophia, that she's like embedded into it. And they believe that like the seasons and the weather and stuff is like her going through her emotions. And I guess what I'm getting at is like my view and like how I live my life is I feel like I'm in a relationship with life. And not to sound like super, not to be like overly poetic, but I feel like I'm in a love story between me and life. And you know, the times in my life where things were rough, it was like she was disappointed in me, so she wasn't really trying to help me, and like I didn't deserve the help. Like I needed to figure it out on my own. And so it was easy to feel like forsaken and left behind, and like, oh, life is like fighting me, and or maybe life like left me behind. But what'll happen if you stay on the right path long enough is eventually you feel life smile on you again. And it's not going to take as long as you think. Like if you're in a dark place right now, I swear it doesn't take as long as you think. And when you start getting on the right path, it's like she sees you and she notices, you know. And like back in the day, people used to personify things as like female, like Mother Nature, and even like in the Bible and Proverbs, wisdom is like Lady Wisdom. It's like a woman. Sorry, I had to drink some water. In Proverbs, it personifies wisdom as a woman. And I think there's something to that. Regardless of what your beliefs are about God, I think that we can all agree that like you are in a relationship with life. And when you feel life cooperating with you, there's just no other feeling like it. Like, and you know, we just want to skip to that, but like when life isn't cooperating with you and it's kind of fighting against you and giving you resistance, like that's for a reason too. Just like if you have a significant other or like a spouse, should they just treat you like a king when you're living wrong? When you're not living right? And for me, fighting was a way to transform. Like what I'm obsessed with in life, like my favorite thing is transformation. I like the feeling of looking in the mirror and realizing that I look different, or going out in public and realizing that my energy is different, that people receive me different. Like that's the thing that I like the most in life. Like to me, that's like the most valuable thing in life. Because it's trippy. Like when you really change your reality, it's almost like if you make big enough changes, you can't believe it while it's happening. So like the nature of reality is like psychedelic. And back to what I was saying about the nature of reality, you know, a lot of religions describe this life as like a dream, that it's not too different from a dream, that things happen spiritually first and mentally, and in the physical world is kind of just like the aftermath or the reflection. Like the outward reflects the inward. And a really fascinating idea that I've been thinking about lately. A long time ago, Jordan Peterson used to talk about this symbolism of going into the underworld and resurrecting your ancestors. And it's fascinating because like here on Earth, let's say Earth is a spiritual realm, and it is kind of like a dreamlike state. That's why manifesting works. That's why law of attraction works. And it's not easy. Like manifesting isn't just, oh, I meditate on it and I think about it and it happens. It's not like that. It's not easy. So I'm not trying to make it sound like life is just a lucid dream where you think about a pile of money and you find a pile of money. But the reason that placebo effect works, and there's been studies on that, like in a dream, much like a psychedelic trip, thought creates reality, and it's the same here. And I believe that if you can like suffer enough, because I have a belief that like suffering pays, I don't know if it's karma or what it is, but I believe that there's like a debt that we have to pay with our suffering. And that's why if you don't like sacrifice and suffering willingly, that you'll suffer involuntarily later. It's because like you have to pay the debt. Back to like, there's a reason we're here. There's a thing that our soul needs to do while it's here. And I believe that there's a really good chance that if you can suffer enough through voluntary sacrifice, like in your lifetime, that you can clear out like not only your own karma and your own debt, but your ancestors' debt. And that you can, who knows, man, like what if like you can actually bring your ancestors out of like the underworld into heaven or something. Like we don't really know how that works. And I believe that Earth is like a sacred place. And in a lot of sacred places, like in temples, they use things like bells. So if it's not a bell, then maybe it'll be like a gong, or they call it I think they call it a gong, like in Shaolin temples where they bang the metal thing and goes bong. And sometimes it's like bells in a chapel, and bells in a temple. And just food for thought, you know, they actually discovered that the moon is hollow. They dropped like if you believe that they go to space, if you believe that like, this is like according to NASA, so I mean, who freaking knows anymore? But according to NASA, like they dropped a little bomb or something on the moon, like a tiny bomb, and it rang like a bell, and that told them that it was hollow. You can look that up. It's like really fascinating. And you know, the moon has an effect on the tides, and the moon has an effect on water. You know, Earth is 70% water, and the human body is also roughly 70% water, just like Earth. Earth and the human body are 70% water. The moon affects tides, as scientifically proven. It seems as though the moon has an effect on humans, and I don't know if there's like scientific proof for that, but a lot of people say that. Like on a full moon, people act crazy and stuff like that. And obviously, if you're into astrology, you know about the moon cycles with like the new moon every month or whatever. And the word lunatic, like crazy person, the root word of that is luna, like lunar and moon. That's the root word. And it's funny how like we live in this like sacred place, like this sacred realm, and above us there's this giant bell that tells us about cycles that are going on. Because if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look at the moon cycles to even remember. I'm not like big on astrology. I think it's very fascinating, but I'm uneducated. I still need to learn. But I'm pretty sure there's a new moon about every month. I think there's a new moon about every 28 days, and then the cycle restarts. Which signifies to me that like the idea of a month, like a roughly 30-day period, is not like completely arbitrary. Like it really is like a cycle. And there's 12 months in a year, and there's 12 zodiacs, and there's like 12 main archetypes in archetypal like symbology. And like I said, like I can't figure it out, and I don't want to figure it out, because like part of the beauty of being a human on Earth is the mystery that we don't know where we are, or why we're here, or what the purpose is, or what's going on. But I believe that this place is sacred, and I believe that your time here is sacred, and I believe that when it's over, you're probably going to wish you did more and you did things differently, even if you lived like a damn near perfect life. You know? But hopefully this gives you a better perspective, because don't be just walking around thinking that this is just a material world. Like, there's a lot going on out here, and it's a lot deeper than we think, and it's a lot deeper than we can possibly know until we go to the other side, probably. So make the most of it while you're here. This is Younger MMA. Peace.